All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Basically, I was asked to get, is it this screen? Can you all see a Google Doc?
No, we can see a great landscape.
All right, this is high technology for you here. So a while ago, I can't even remember when, beginning of the year, end of last year, I was asked to kind of put together a definition of what does moving to complete mean for dependency scanning. And I basically went and looked at a bunch of commercial dependency scanning software. I looked at the software types that our customers were using, GitHub customers were using, that are popular just on the internet in general. I looked at the company initiatives, I looked at UX benchmarks, I looked at a whole bunch of things, and the end result is this, which I'm planning to put in the Epic, but I had wanted to review it with David first to see if I had even gotten close to kind of what the objective was. This is not written in stone. This is things that I think, based on all of those inputs, are important. So feedback definitely welcome. But basically what I thought was, first, something that the competitors always say is it's really easy to integrate us. And one of the GitLab selling points is that we have tight integration into the SDLC. So I figured that we currently have it, we continue to maintain it, and that is like a checkbox. We need to continue to maintain that. I want us to cover the top languages. And when I say top languages, again, that was input from what are the top languages at GitLab today, which the data team put together a report for me. What are the top languages at GitHub and on like internet reports in general. These are not necessarily in order here, but I did put the ones that are dog foodable up at the top. But this is kind of the ones that are the most popular. We have JavaScript, we have PHP, we have Python, we have Java. So those we can already have. We already have Ruby gems. And then the ones with the red stop signs we don't yet have. And then the yellow exclamation points are like, we have some bugs reported there, / there's some technical shenanigans. I know with Go, there's like a way that people do the libraries that it's hard to kind of necessarily track things. So that one I think needs a whole separate conversation. But I think having some kind of Go support, we need to. We're just gonna, I think, run into a bunch of technical shenanigans. The next point is, yep, go ahead.
Just a quick word. I don't see why we have Ruby on Rails here as a language, because Ruby on Rails is just leveraging Ruby gems, unless I'm missing something.
I did not know if they're 100%, kind of like, you know, how Java has Maven and Gradle.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there were other top providers.
So Ruby on Rails published is a library framework published as a gems. I saw some multiple ones, so it's covered. So right now, if you have an issue of CVE affecting Ruby on Rails, you will get that part of the current coverage of Ruby gems for dependency scanning.
So there's not other popular gem providers right now other than Ruby gems?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
One thing that we have not listed there, and that has been already requested, but it's not exactly the same topic, but it's system dependencies. Like, for example, it could be also interpreters. Like, we don't tell if Ruby itself is the version of Ruby you're using into your project is vulnerable or not. We could do that. This is a kind of information that is also publicly released in CVEs. So this is the kind of thing we could add.
What would you call that? Versioning of framework, or?
This will be more like scanning interpreters and system libraries, maybe. Like the version of Java itself that you're using, the version of Ruby you're using, something like that.
I'm gonna stick that in lovable for right now.
Yeah, sure.
Just because we have a lot incomplete, and I'm not sure that I saw that on competitors / customer ask / analyst reports as like a top ask, but I'll definitely throw it in the lovable bucket. All right, so apparently Ruby on Rails, I wasn't sure if there was another top provider, so that changed to a green check.
And that might be something similar for C, C++, C#. I'm not really well versed into these domains.
I mean,
but
hopefully we can look into these and maybe there's a lot of overlap and we can use one solution to knock off. I just want to be able to go, if a customer says, hey, I have C# or hey, I have C++, we can say, yes, we've tested X and we can check your code.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that taking the language approach, even if under the hood it's more tied to a given package manager, taking the language approach first is what the customer would be looking for. So I agree, it's a great top level.
And so like when I was looking at, like I specifically called it JavaScript NPM, because when I looked for what is the top provider of JavaScript dependencies, like I Googled around and most places were saying NPM is the most popular. So I know that there are multiple providers for these, but the reason why I called out some specific providers, not that I don't want to support other providers, but I feel that these are the top providers, at least as of today, according to internet searches. And so I want to make sure those are solid. But so yeah, expanding the language coverage. And then the next point is trying to get some more dog fooding going, trying to improve our regression testing for our top supported languages, and then trying to figure out like how do we benchmark performance. I know that we have an issue for this already. I just want to like call that out as, I know that's marked as like a backstage issue right now, but even though it's not a quote unquote customer feature, I think that work to benchmark and monitor and look at our limits is important. And then some other things like how fast are analyzers on a particular test project and does that change over time? So I'm not looking at a speed, I'm looking at does our speed change when we do an update drastically, like from 12.10 to 13.0. Do we go from X number of minutes on this one particular test project that hasn't changed to twice as many minutes type situation? And can we do concurrency and just things like that? Are there other areas kind of in like the reliability / not making it a miserable experience you think are worth calling out that we haven't started looking at or that we are looking at and I should call out specifically?
This sounds really focused around the reliability of the execution, not the reliability of the matching of the data or the scanning itself. I mean, how reliable the scanner is to find vulnerabilities and report them to the users.
This is not about false positives. That is correct.
Okay.
This is about consistency, and I'll write that down. Consistency, speed, not false positives.
Okay.
Because I do have a spot for false positives, but that I put further.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking this is because now the management of the vulnerability database that we are relying on is outside of this group, and it's been handled by a different team. So the accuracy of the content of the database itself could not depend on us. But
I think we'll at some point we'll want to be able to monitor that, but for right now, I'm more worried about like size, speeds, limit, consistency. Like just overall, how are we performing? And that's front end and back end. Like how long does, a particular widget take to load an MR widget or whatever? I should say. There. So then the next one is easy to use, and that's UX Scorecard. So I should probably find a link to the UX scorecards. Kyle and I are going through and possibly making some additional UX scorecards, but we have some pretty not great scores right now, and I think we are fully aware of that. Like right now, the process of setting up is rough, and it requires like being technical, copy pasting. Like once everything is configured and set up and you have a result, it's fairly easy to see your result. There's a little snafu right now around downloading things, which we're dependent on another team for, but basically there's a bunch of scorecards for jobs to be done. And a job to be done is like, as a developer, I want to see the results of my security tests in an MR I did. Or as a administrator, I want to set up security scans for my developers, so on and so forth. And I want to bring those scores up to at least like Bs for the major jobs to be done. The next one is being able to do the suggested solutions for at least 3 of our top languages. So these being our top languages, do it for at least 3 of them. I don't have a particular preference about which 3. I think whichever ones engineering like wants to do a proof of concept and decide like this is the most valuable or this is the easiest, or as long as it's in one of our top languages. Does 3 sound crazy for the next like 6 to 9 months?
Hard to tell.
So, I figured
Yeah.
anything more than 3 would be crazy pants. So
the problem with those is, again, dealing with different package manager. We can have a lot of, I mean, once we have one down, we have a lot of logic that we can reuse. Then it's just a matter of figure out how to stick to this particular package manager. So I'd say it depends on the rest of the roadmap, but yeah, sounds reasonable to have 3, and depending on how easy it is, we can even go further than that.
I mean, doing more is always
Yeah.
yay. I just want to kind of have targets.
Particularly if we have the choice. I mean, if there is a definitive list in
My
which we should pick
definitive
them in
list is
order.
our top languages, so
Yeah.
something from those. If it's not in that top language list, it doesn't count. I mean, it can get done, that's awesome, but it won't affect a large percentage of the user base, and so I won't count that towards this goal.
So could you please remove the raw Ruby on Rails one and put it
Yep.
in with the same Ruby gems? So basically, NPM, PHP, and Ruby gem sounds to be the easiest one to me at first, but need to check that with my engineers, because Go might be an easy one too, because it's just about handling the tree.
And
but anyway,
yeah, if we want to do like a proof of concept or whatever, or I think I actually do have an issue in 13.1 for us figuring out what language we want to do next. And however we want to do that, if we want to do like little test projects and goof around for a month and then say, hey, this is what's necessary for this, and we thought it was going to be easy, but it's not, so let's look at something else instead, that's fine.
Okay.
And then the idea here is that it's going to use the same UI that we've got, and so there shouldn't be UI changes. It should just be, hopefully, for number 5 backend changes, whereas 4 I kind of expect is going to be a lot of front end changes. So custom restrictions, I'm sure you've heard this from customers and account managers in Slack. People want to be able to place restrictions on their dependencies, and right now we have the merge request approvals only for critical and high. And so I want to work with Kyle on, could we let somebody say, for this project, I'm only going to want a merge request approval on a critical, and on this other project I want it on a critical and high, and on this other project I want a critical, high, and a medium. So they can kind of pick by project where they want their, and I know that's going to require a bunch of changes to happen, but I'd like us to look at that, because I think people are going to want that more as the compliance team starts upselling the compliance integration story. this is kind of a partner to that. Is once you start talking compliance, people are like, oh, I need to be able to restrict certain things from certain projects. This one is like an asterisk. I'm not sure we can nail this in the next 9 months, because I know we talked about this once before and there was a lot of prerequisite work. So I'd like to start on the prerequisite work to identify if we're out of date by a minor or a major, and maybe even if we're EOL. And once we can start identifying that, maybe start allowing restriction of it. But I think at least being able to identify that, hopefully, over the next 9 months. And again, this could target, like we could start with one top language, if that's easiest, because I know this is probably going to be based on the way that they're pulling stuff in the framework. You have a very thoughtful face. I'm concerned.
Yeah, there are very broad topics under that single line.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, this has to be broken down to at least support for public registries, custom registries, because it's changed things a lot. There are a lot of also ongoing discussion about the engineering aspect of this, because it requires to be aware of new version available. So it might come with a lot of prerequisites indeed.
Yep.
Good thing is, well, the Gymnasium team did it, so you already have knowledge about that domain. It's just a matter of figuring out what is the best approach to put that into GitLab.
Okay, and yeah, like this one is, I think just, and I'll note this down first, let's tell, not block, for merge request approval. So like first we'll tell people, then we can get into other stuff. And like one language, I wouldn't expect to do this for more than one language to start, just to see how it goes.
And one thing that I don't really like, but this is the approach that we've took so far to integrate security tools, is there are already plenty of open source tools available today that will just create you tons of merge requests as soon as they know there is a newer version available for one of your dependencies. So if this is something we want to do, we can just integrate those ones and voila, you get something. But is this something we want to provide?
So this one, for right now, I just want to tell people, and then I want our users to provide feedback about what actions they want to take as a result. So do they want to be notified? Do they want this in a dashboard? Do they want it to just update? Based on some of the discussions we've had for the suggested solution auto remediation stuff, I'm not sure people really want it to just update, or at least all people want it to just update. Some people just want to be aware and then come up with their own plan. And so, I mean, now if you tell me it's a lot easier to start with just random updates, maybe that's the MVC. And, you know, obviously people would opt in. I want all of our features to be opt-in. But if that's easier, we could look at that. But kind of the second point is, can we do something telling people about the age, and I don't know a better term for that, but like the age of their dependency? Is it aging out? Yeah, freshness.
Yeah, we had struggled to find a good term about this. Yeah, and there is plenty of areas to dig into, like, hey, maybe this is not the most used dependency right now. There are new ones available that can replace that. There were, there are very several improvements to be made there. There is a big overlap on this with the remediations, because remediations are often about upgrading the dependency. So once you have the remediation in place, which sounds to be a higher priority than this one, you will already have the logic to update the dependency. You would just need to know, hey, do you have an earlier version, in a more recent version, and do you want to update to it? So it's basically setting policies like, I want to always update to the next patch level, or to the minor, or to the major, and then we use the same existing logic about updating the dependency. So
Yeah, and I did not want to get into that workflow engine yet. I wanted to just start with letting people know about the freshness or age of their stuff and then
Okay.
find out what the next most important thing was. And if the next most important thing is, I want you to auto remediate it, cool. If the next most important thing is, I want you to, you know, like send alerts out to people or whatever, like, you know, I don't know how proactive or reactive they want. Like, do you want us to start warning you when your minor version's out of date or major version's out of date? Is that going to vary by project? Do you just want to know about end of life? Like, you know, by the way, you're 30 days out of end of life, or, you know, 90 days out of end of life. So, but yeah, so that one like definitely needs, all of these are going to probably need us to dig in like on multiple design issues. These are just kind of like overarching themes, and we'll probably change and morph as the year goes on based on what we find, based on what we see in the market. The next one is manage things at a instance and group level, because self-hosted versus SaaS, obviously. But right now, all settings are per project, and there's been people saying like, I want to be able to, at my instance or at my group, make sure license scanning is on, dependency scanning is on, find out, you know, like make sure merge request approval groups are set up and everything. So we're going to start talking to customers about that. And again, this kind of pairs with a lot of the compliance stuff. The motivation for this is partially compliance based, but it is about kind of knowing what security scanners are happening and that there's restrictions or merge request approval restrictions in there. So that's kind of a big one that we've got plans to start talking to customers about. Maintaining offline, we've got it. We just have a couple languages left with license compliance, but I think we've identified some pain points that kind of slowly over the next however many releases, we'll start trying to make the process a bit less technical. But I believe that any customer running an offline environment is going to have a technical team. Like, in order to have that situation, they do have to have a technical team. So this does not need to be like push button WYSIWYG wizard. It just needs to be hopefully not bounced like to 10 different parts of the documentation. And I think there's already some good ideas there, and we'll just have to slowly keep nosing them along. And then the last one I've got is partnerships. And we've kind of already got that started, and I just want to slowly nose this one along. And the reason why I think this is important to get us to complete is kind of three parts. The first is some people, for industry reasons, for compliance reasons, for auditor reasons, have to run a certain brand of scanner for a certain type of scan. And they will not want to choose GitLab if we don't have a way for other scanners to integrate. You know, whatever their reason is, they signed a 10-year contract, they're obligated by their industry, you know, like maybe one of their scanners has to be X, but their other scanners can be ours. And so I want to continue for us to slowly move forward our support of having third-party scanners be able to integrate. Again, I don't want us to do integration work. Like, that is up to the vendor, that is up to the customer, but I'd like us to like make sure our documentation is good, identify anything that we feel needs to kind of be available, like a linter or a checker, so you can check your artifact or whatever, things like that. And then stuff that I specifically am not including in complete, because I expect it to fall after like the end of this year. So this, I put the thing that you had mentioned there for now. Ways to reduce noise. So this would be like your false positive stuff. Education, like right now we just link to like third-party sites. Like, this is what a cross-site script is. So it would be nice if we found, like, you know, Wayne did that little blog post on like what are the top faults. So like for dependency scanning, could we find what the top industry practices are? I'm just going to make one up. The top industry practices don't have an end of life dependency. Like that probably is a thing. And be able to kind of explain to you like, hey, we identified in the next 90 days, this particular dependency is going to go end of life. And so it is, you know, recommended by best practices in, you know, the coding industry that you should start looking at upgrading this. Click the auto remediation button if you want to test an MR with an upgrade to, you know, the next version up or whatever. But because right now we're just very factual, like this has this or this has that. And so I'd like to, where possible and reasonable for top issues, be able to kind of provide a little more context to a developer along with pointing them at the next step. Industry standard mappings, I want us to work with the compliance team about like, can we map MITRE, OWASP, PCI, HIPAA, any of those things to like certain CVEs or CWEs. There's been the malware topic kicking around. I'm not sure with dependencies. I think where malware might come in is like, has someone hijacked a dependency? Which happens fairly regularly. So if there were a way for us to notice that a particular dependency was hijacked, we could say, hey, warning, you use this dependency and it was identified as hijacked, which isn't necessarily, we don't know that your code is vulnerable. Maybe we could, I don't know. But we could say there's a risk here because this was, the ownership was hijacked or man in the middle. Source reuse, like, hey, by the way, it looks like you are using, you know, this stuff off SourceForge that might fit better into SAST, it might fit better into us, I don't know, but basically you are reusing code. You know, it is a dependency, it's not your custom code, but you've done it in an insecure way. And then notifications and rescans. Like, by the way, we recommend you scan once a month, whether or not you do a branch, just so you can get an update on any dependencies that are stale or whatever. But those I kind of put here because I thought these were more important. All right, so what did I miss or what's crazy?
One interesting thing, but I think it will fall under reduction of false positives, is what has been recently mentioned by Fabien and created an issue about this, is try to find an overlap between SAST and dependency scanning. And I think this is something also mentioned by the analyst in the report, is yes, you are able to tell that the project is using this library, but are you able to tell that this specific project is using the specific method of that library that contain the vulnerability itself? Like you could have this, you could use that vulnerable version, but not leverage the code that contained the vulnerability itself. It's, I think it's, yes, it's loadable because it includes a lot of digging into the vulnerability itself, how you can use it, and then be able to retrace that used or not being used or not used within the project itself, which is why I talk about overlapping with SAST. But yeah, I think you agree that this is under false positive reductions.
And that's, I mean, I don't want to say we don't do anything with any of this lovable stuff, but we need to limit the amount of lovable stuff we're poking at until we like have made significant progress on the complete stuff. So like if we want to poke at that a little bit or give our input on that and set a little bit of time aside, that's cool. I just don't want it to be like one of our top things that we're working, because I'd much rather get us some more language coverage and a little more usability first.
One of the things that I would like to see more, but it's having more, I think, again, I think Philip created an issue about this one, is to promote the dependency as a first-class citizen, because we have a ton of information, and this might join another improvement, which is how do we handle the overlap between dependency scanning and composition and license compliance. Sorry, but because software composition analysis is a mix between the two, and we keep moving forward on the two items separately, we start to have some cross-linking between the two. So we have the dependency list that can show licenses. We have the license list that lists the dependencies that are using those licenses. So focusing more on, hey, here's the list of components. I think we also have some discussion about the bill of material and things like that. And this is clearly an intersection between the two. I would like to see us moving more into that direction, because this is what the customer will be more interested in and what it would be more actionable. Like this given component is something I can isolate and work on, be it a license issue or a vulnerability.
So unfortunately, because of where the company wants us to hit with dependency scanning, that is not going to happen this year. But I agree with you, SBOM is becoming a big thing, and that's a big part of it. Is I need to know if there's vulnerabilities, I need to know if there's license issues, I need to see that all in one view. So I popped that down into lovable. Maybe that will change based on the importance that SBOM is picking up. But if not, like, we definitely do need to do that. There's a million things we need to do. I just tried to order them, or at least the first 9 are ordered. The 10th bucket is kind of just a catch-all bucket at this point. And by the way, these are in the order that I was thinking. Like the first 9 are specifically in order. So if you think that maybe the order here is a little bit off or wrong, or if it would be easier if one came before another, you can always let me know. And if there's no major problems with this, I will go put it into the Epic today with like a little more explanation and wording and everything else. And then we can kind of move all comments and tweaks there going forward. It's just harder to edit the description over and over. So I figured if there's any major changes, I could do it in Google Docs first and then move it over.
No, I agree. I don't see any objection about looking at those things in this order, like just start by looking at all these languages before starting remediation, doing remediation on the known language and the supported language we have today. I just want this to not be a blocker. Like one requirement, strong requirement we have to support dependency scanning for a given language is, well, to have a publicly known source of vulnerabilities for those kind of I'm saying something stupid, but for example, we don't have any package manager for C++, or we do have a package manager, a public registry, but we don't have any public databases for vulnerabilities for C++ packages. We can do nothing. So we can look at them in this order, but this might not be the order in which we will implement them because of some blockers. So we'll skip the blocked ones.
And I think if we look at something and identify like, here are the blockers, we have to make issues for the blockers and then just basically say for that sub epic, this is blocked right now. We'll circle back to it later. So yeah, that's completely valid. If we find that there's a big gotcha, if we can start working on the gotcha, like we should do that. But if it's waiting on some other team or some other thing to exist that just doesn't exist, we can just stick a blocker on it and be like, we can revisit this. We'll look at it again in 3 months to see if anything's changed. But as of right now, it's on hold.
And obviously another aspect is it depends on the skill set required to work on those features. Like see if some features require more array side or front-end side work, we can move forward on those earlier than waiting for all the backend stuff to be done. But yeah, cool. Well, that's an interesting plan.
Uh-oh.
At least
interesting bad.
Interesting plan, sorry.
Okay.
At least we have some work to do.
Goodness, we are never going to run out of work.
Yeah.
So I'll get it put into the Epic, but like I said, this is based on, I read a whole bunch of analyst reports. I read, our competitors. I read all sorts of stuff. And those were the recurring themes of what mattered to companies that they were selling on, what mattered to users that they were buying on. And so that's kind of where, in my mind, we need to go to be complete, because the definition of complete is we can compete with a standalone product. And so if this is what they're selling on and we can compete on these, then I consider us competitive. So. And sorry we ran over, but I will get this recording up on Unfiltered. I don't think we mentioned any customer names or anything, so we should be good. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.